Hello. Okay, so in this video we're going to have a look at the qualified next hop, or otherwise known as the floating static route. So as you can see, we have another interface on here now, XE005, and that has the IP address of 10.10.55, so these are there on XE5.1 and .2/24. So what we're going to do, we're going to set up a qualified next hop to the loopback of spine 2, which is, as we remember, 22.22.22.22. And we're going to set this as our floating static route or qualified next hop. And we're going to change the preference to be greater than what our current current static route is. I believe it was set to 7, even though it should be 5. We'll change that, and then we'll set this to say 7 as well. We'll have a look and see how that plays out on the actual routing table. Okay, so let's jump onto our leaf. All right, so we have our show routing options. We can see here that our static route to the loop back on spine 2, we set that in the last video as a preference of 7. So let's change that. So let's do set routing options, static route, and it's 2222/32. So the next hop is 10.10.21.1 preference, and we'll put the preference as 5, just to get the static route back to what it would normally be on default. And let's do a show routing options. Okay, great. So our preference is back to 5 as it should be. So now let's set our qualified next hop. So let's do set routing options, and it's going to be static route, and it's going to go to the same destination, so the loop back of spine 2, so 22.22.22.22/32. But this time we're going to do and put the route in there. This time we're going to do the qualified next hop. So if we do the question mark and scroll down a bit under the Q's, you'll see the qualified next hop there. So this is our secondary or our floating static route. So let's do our qualified next hop. So qualified next hop, and that's going to be 10.10.55.1. But now we have to put a preference in. So the preference we're going to put on here is going to be, let's say, 7. And let's do a commit. And let's have a look once this is committed at the actual routing options. And okay, so here we can see we've got our normal static route via 10.10.21.1, which is XE002. And now we have our qualified next hop with this preference of 7. Let's have a look at the routing table. So run show route and 22.22.22.22. Okay, great. So as we can see here, we have our static route with a preference of 5 going out via GE or XE002. We now have our floating static route with a preference of 7, and that would go out on XE005. And as we can see with our little caret here, we highlight that this is the active route. So let's see, make sure we can still ping to the loopback on the spine. So run ping 22.22.22.22. Okay, yep, so everything's sweet in that regard. Let's see if we can do a trace route. 22.22.22.22. Okay, yeah, so our trace routes are working fine. It's not really showing us the hops because it's only, the next hop on the table, but that's absolutely fine. If there was multiple hops, then we'd definitely see the addresses of where they're coming from, but it's only just one hop away, so it makes no odds. So what we're going to do, let's say we terminate XE001. Is that okay? Yeah, port 2, XE002 rather. Let's say we delete that. So it's no longer there. And then we'll give it a moment, and then we'll check the actual routing table for the route to spine 2's loopback and see whether anything has changed. Right, let's have a look. The run show route. Let's go 22.22.22.22. Okay, so it's still showing there, and it's still showing as active. But as we can see now, when we do the run show route again, we now only have the one route in the routing table, the static route with the preference of 7. So this is our backup route. So what we're going to do, we're going to re-enable the interface, and we're going to check this again. So let's connect the interface back up again. So that was 2 to 1. Sweet. Okay, let's get rid of that. All right, so we're not going to see a huge amount just yet. Reason being, in the virtualized environment, the keeper lives wasn't actually working, so it didn't detect that the actual interface was down. So what I done, I set the interface XC002 to disable, which is, has the same net overall result as what we would expect if you'd plugged, the cable out. It just informs the routing engine that that interface is no longer usable. But unfortunately, I had to do it this way because it wasn't seeing that the actual interface was down. So again, minor virtualization issue, but we got around that. So let's do delete that statement. Okay, so that will be the interface is now re-enabled again. So let's do a run show route 22.22.22.22. And as we can see, we have our static route with the preference of 5 is backup. So there we go, nice and easy qualified static routes, or in other words floating static routes, exactly the same as what they're doing in Cisco, just a slightly different way of configuring them. So there you go. I hope this lesson on static routes has been interesting for you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.